Hi there, and welcome to my AMA, Ask Me Anything, the conspiracy show with Richard Syrett. Please, before we get started, take a moment and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just hit that red subscribe button. The modest goal that we've set for ourselves is to get up to 10,000 subscribers sometime this year, but I think we can do better. And again, welcome to the AMA and the Conspiracy Show, of course. My radio program airs Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern on Zoomer Radio, but of course you can also listen with the app, the Conspiracy Show radio app, which is a free download, and of course it's also on Stitcher Radio, the podcast, that is, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn.com, iTunes, and TalkZone.com. All right. Let's get started here with our first questions. And thank you for all these great questions. I'll do my best to answer them. All right, we will begin with, let me scroll up here for a minute. Let's see, here we go. Amanda Curran, have you ever interviewed Danny Elfman? If yes, please share. If not, why not? All right, Amanda, thank you for your question. In fact, I had this one last night. Someone in the live chat on the YouTube stream was asking me about Danny Elfman as well. No, I haven't. The short answer is I have not interviewed Danny Elfman. For those of you who don't know, Danny Elfman, my favorite composer, composes a lot of film scores, of course, television show, The Simpsons. But I use a lot of his music as bumper music on my radio program, almost exclusively Danny Elfman. So one would think that I would interview him, but I have not, and I will certainly reach out to him, Amanda. It's a great idea. It'd be a pretty tough get. He'd be pretty difficult to get to, being as famous and popular as he is, but we'll give it a shot. I'll put my producer Albert on that. Thank you, Amanda. Carlsberg. Hey, Carlsberg, you were the winner of our What's in the Box segment. She remote viewed and correctly identified that it was a silver spoon on my desk. And we're going to send Carlsberg a mug or a hoodie or something. So congratulations. She wants to know, who is your favorite guest to interview and why? And then also, do you think we're heading for World War III? Wow. Okay. Favorite guests. Difficult to say. I've been doing this for 20 years, but there are certain people that I bring back on a fairly regular basis, people like Jim Marrs and John Rappaport. I think they're terrific researchers and writers, and they're really, to me, I put them in sort of the pantheon of the great writers, researchers who toil in this field of conspiracy. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, of course, a favorite and a dear friend who's on a regular basis, once a month. I mean, she's so prolific. She's written over 60 books in the field of the supernatural and the paranormal. Nick Redfern is also always full value, writing about UFOs and Men in Black and so forth. Are we heading into World War III? I'm pretty optimistic about that. There are certainly there's a lot of tension in the world. There are a lot of hot zones. The Mideast has never been more destabilized in recent memory. The war party is certainly trying to push the United States into some sort of a confrontation with Russia. But I have a feeling that Trump and Putin are going to come to some sort of an understanding. North Korea remains a big problem. And Trump is going to have to get tough with China and tell them to deal with it. He's going to anger the Chinese, but he's going to have to do that. And because only China, I think, is in a position, because 90% of North Korea's imports and exports go through China. So China holds all the cards, and they're going to have to deal with this madman in North Korea. As for ISIS, I don't believe that radical Islamic terrorism represents an existential threat as yet, but who knows, if they get their hands on some dirty nuclear material, then we are in trouble. But no, I don't think we're heading into World War III, but then I am an eternal optimist. Eric the Actor. Hi, Eric. George Norrie, my good colleague George at Coast to Coast, George always tells the audience that the lunar landings, I think he means, the landings really happened. What was the film from those old-time cameras, or was the film from those old-time cameras radiation proof? First of all, on the record, yes, I do believe we landed on the moon in 1969. My theory is I think we may have been there earlier. I believe in a secret space program, and I think that in large measure the Apollo, Gemini, Mercury programs were sort of window dressing to distract the public from a far more sophisticated and advanced space program. So it's possible that we were on the moon much earlier. The radiation, why wasn't the film fogged by the radiation? Well, it can be shielded, the film and the cameras. Those Hasselblad cameras were modified, and they could have been shielded to prevent the film from fogging due to the radiation. But it's a fascinating area. Many of you are interested in it. We did a show recently with the distributor and publisher Marcus Allen from Nexus Magazine. He does believe the landings were a hoax, and presented all his photographic evidence. And I'm willing to listen to that. I can listen to that all day. Listen, if people have a theory and they have evidence and an argument, then I say bring it on. Doesn't mean I always agree with it, but it's worth exploring. The pursuit of truth never need apologize, even if at the end you discover that person was wrong, or their evidence doesn't hold up. That's fine. That's fine. We don't need to be afraid of having these discussions. Steve Macca. Hi, Steve. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Steve Macca. Anything coming up on synchronicity? I think, Steve, you emailed me or tweeted me some time ago asking for a show, and I said I would get on that, and I haven't, so I apologize. I'm fascinated by synchronicity. I did a show with Marie Jones, another great prolific author. Some time ago we talked about synchronicity as it pertains to numbers. I don't know about you, Steve, but I'm sort of haunted by the number 1010. I won't bore you with the details now. I've talked about it on the radio, but I seem to be followed by the numbers 1010. And I will try to get a guest to talk about that again. Or the other thing that we can do is just open up the phone lines one night and have people call in with their stories of synchronicity. We'll do that. Thanks, Steve. Dan, have you ever done a show on sleep paralysis? In a manner, yes, a number of them. Not specifically or exclusively on sleep paralysis, but that topic always comes up whenever we discuss things like the old hag syndrome, which is cross-cultural. People believe that they are being attacked in their sleep, in their beds usually, by some specter, some phantom, some entity that means them harm. And during the ordeal, sometimes people see this entity that they describe looking or resembling an old hag, long gray hair, fingernails, sitting on their chest. They find it difficult to breathe. They're overcome by a sense of dread. Sometimes they hear this entity hissing and so forth, but they can't move. They are paralyzed. They can't cry out for help. And neurologists say that this can be explained away by something called sleep paralysis, which is very common. In fact, I think when we dream, we are essentially paralyzed, and this is to prevent us from flailing around and hurting ourselves or someone else in the bed with us. So sleep paralysis certainly can explain some of it, but not all of it. I do believe in an unseen world, and I believe in hyperdimensions that may be inhabited by who knows what. Theoretical physicists believe in up to 26 hyperdimensions. Who knows what lurks in those dimensions? I believe in an angelic realm. I believe in demons. That may come as a shock to you, but there you go. So, yes, we have talked about sleep paralysis in that context. Thanks, Dan. Anthony Clapp, any chance you could have Richard C. Hoagland as a guest? I miss hearing his reports. As do I. Richard was a regular on Coast to Coast for many, many years. I don't know what happened there, but I haven't heard him on there in quite a while. I interviewed Richard C. Hoagland on Coast to Coast several years ago. It was quite enjoyable. He's so knowledgeable. Speaking of, lunar landing and lunar landing hoaxes and so forth. Richard believes that we landed on the moon, but I believe if memory serves, certainly believes that there are ancient alien structures on the moon, and of course subscribes to the notion that there was an ancient advanced civilization on Mars, and he has talked at length about that. But I'll try to get Richard on. I'm not sure what's going on with him. He used to be on with Art Bell on Midnight in the Desert, I believe, but since Art has retired, I don't know if he continues to do that program. Thank you, Anthony. Mark Gamble, when will you have Victor Ostrovsky as a guest in your show? Victor, a Canadian, Israeli, was I believe it's been verified that he was a member of Mossad, Israel's spy agency, and has written several books on that subject, and has been, I believe, sued by the Israeli government, maybe for sharing classified information. I'm not exactly sure what that was about. But Victor would have some very interesting stories to tell about the spy business and working for Mossad. He is alive. He lives, I think, in Florida. He's in his late 60s. He's kind of retired, and he's an artist of some renown. Lost his wife recently. She was 65, I believe, a couple years ago. But yeah, we can reach out to Victor and talk to him. Thank you, Mark. Dan Fabulous. Are you fabulous, Dan? I bet you are. Dan wants to know, have you or will you be doing a feature on Elisa Lam? The Elisa Lam mystery, for those who don't know, was a Chinese-Canadian student, 21, from Vancouver, I think, traveled down to Los Angeles, was staying at the infamous Cecil Hotel. The Cecil Hotel has a bit of a dark history. There have been a number of murders there. I believe there was a journalist / serial killer, if you can believe it, who lived there, and several of his victims were killed at the Cecil Hotel, and there have been a string of strange deaths and suicides and so forth. Anyway, Elisa Lam was staying at the Cecil Hotel, disappeared. They found her quite some time later, nude and in a water storage tank, a very large water storage tank on the roof of the hotel. This is grisly, people were complaining that the water pressure was very low, and that the water tasted kind of strange and off. And caretaker went up to investigate the water tank, and he found her nude body there, partially decomposed. And they don't know what happened, but there's some strange surveillance footage from an elevator. We see Elisa getting on, pressing all the buttons. The door doesn't close. She's looking agitated, perhaps as if she's being pursued. She keeps looking out of the elevator, looking down the hall, left and right. At one point she gets out of the elevator. She's kind of gesticulating with her hands as if she's speaking to somebody off camera. Then the doors close, and that's it. We don't know what happened to poor Elisa. Very tragic, mysterious story. So if there's someone, Dan Fabulous, that you can recommend to speak to that case, I would love to have them on. I'll do a little digging. Maybe someone has written a book. Or there's a reporter who's been pursuing this case, which is now, this happened in 2013, I believe. Right about now, I think we're coming up on the anniversary. So, or just passed, I think it was in January. Anyway, the Elisa Lam mystery at the Cecil Hotel. It's a real head-scratcher and a very sad story. Thank you for that, Dan. Wayne Klingman. Sir, will you be coming to Midwest Weird? Yes, the Midwest Weird Film Festival. They feature horror films, sci-fi, documentaries, I guess sort of alternative journalism type documentaries, and what some might call subversive and subterranean type films. Sounds like a lot of fun there in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I have not been. I hadn't intended on going. I don't know if I can make it this year. I think it's coming up. I don't want to give people the wrong date, but I think it's coming up maybe in the spring, if memory serves. People can Google it, the Midwest Weird Film Festival. Sounds like a great time. Wayne, I don't know if you have any association with the festival, but if people at the festival would like me to appear, they can reach out to me, and if they can get me down there and put me up in a hotel or take care of me, then I would be delighted to appear and speak or whatever they'd like. It sounds like a great time. Mike R., which interview was your best, worst in all your time following the truth? Thanks, Mike. That's always very difficult because I've been doing this kind of radio for nearly 20 years and just countless interviews. But I have kind of a stable of favorites. People like John Rappaport from No More Fake News, Jim Marrs, of course, who is really sort of the granddaddy in terms of JFK assassination research and so forth. Don Schmidt and Tom Carey, the Roswell investigators, wonderful. Worst. I don't want to mention any names, but from time to time you get kind of a stiff or lame interview, someone who's not prepared. Not too long ago I interviewed a female author, and as I was asking her the questions, I'm not even going to tell you the subject because that would give it away, but I was hearing a voice, a male voice, off camera, giving her, or off mic rather, giving her the answers. It was if she knew nothing about the subject, even though she supposedly wrote the book. It was very bizarre, and a lot of people picked up on it. You may remember the interview, and people were emailing saying, what is going on with this person? So that one jumps immediately to mind. Thanks, Mike. Tyrannosaurus Vex. Great name, great handle. How is it that Islamist terrorism is both a clash of civilizations and puppetry from Western intelligence? That's a great question. Politics, the old saying, politics makes strange bedfellows, but I think espionage and sort of the subversive aspect of geopolitics makes for even stranger bedfellows. You know the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So, okay, what we're talking about with Islamist terrorism, we have ISIS, before that Al-Qaeda, both Sunni extremists, those groups. They are Sunni extremists. They want to impose another caliphate. So this is nothing new. This has been the aspiration of extreme Sunni Muslims since the 7th century. The last one, of course, was the Ottoman Empire. The Caliph has absolute rule. He's a religious political figure. And currently there are about 12 million Syrians and Iraqis living within control of ISIS. They have established a caliphate there in Iraq and Syria. And it is brutal. It's ruled under Sharia law, which, for the record, is incompatible with Western civilization. It is all about subjugating women. It is vehemently opposed to Western civilization and our belief, our core values in respect for minorities, religious minorities. I don't need to tell you what it is like to be a homosexual living under Sharia law. The penalty is death. These are brutal, brutal regimes. And this is the end game for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and their adherents, their followers, to bring the world under Sharia law, which cannot be allowed to happen. And so why would, as you say, Western intelligence groups be currying favor with them or be behind them, funding them, and so forth? I wouldn't call them Western intelligence groups per se. They are receiving funding from some of the Arab Emirate countries, Saudi Arabia. This came out in WikiLeaks. There are some, I would say, rogue elements in certain intelligence groups around the world that have no allegiance to the nation state. They are not, you can't call them American intelligence, you can't call them British intelligence. Within those intelligence apparatus, there may be rogue elements that are funding and supporting ISIS. And the reason why is because they are globalists. They hate the idea of the nation state. They are globalists. They want to divide the world, not into one world government, but into various large trading blocs, similar to Orwell's 1984. And then those trading blocs will be in a perpetual state of war with one another. And this is the best way to control populations, to instill fear. So this is the end game. And right now, for these globalists, what ISIS is doing provides them a convenient bludgeon, if you will. It's a destabilizing agent that they can use. So they've latched onto it. They didn't create radical Islamic terror, but they certainly are using it. But what happens, I use the example of Frankenstein. Dr. Frankenstein creates the monster in this case. I'm not saying Western intelligence created ISIS, but sometimes what happens is the monster gets up off the table, he rips off the leather straps that are holding him down, and now he can no longer be controlled. And he goes on this bloody rampage. So that's what has in part happened. So anyway, I hope that answers your question, Tyrannosaurus Rex. But it is possible that these two things are happening at the same time. Yes, there is a clash of civilizations happening. We are in the midst of it, and the globalists are certainly helping it along because it's a tool. It's a bloody battering ram that they can use to achieve their objective, which is to destroy the nation state. It's an objective that is shared by radical Islamic terrorist groups because they hate Western civilization. Thank you for that. Gord McEachern, in both Ontario and Alberta, I have noticed a complete cessation of chemtrail activity on clear days since Trump won the election. Any connection? Gord, I'm getting conflicting reports because I continue to hear from people across Canada, Quebec, Alberta, Ontario, and in the United States of a continuance of chemtrail activity. So that's a new one on me, Gord, to say that you haven't seen any chemtrail activity. And I've also read recently people reporting increased chemtrail activity in Florida. And they were tying that into the fact that Trump, of course, that's his weekend retreat, where he goes to work on weekends in Key Largo, his resort there. So they were drawing a connection between increased chemtrail activity and Trump being there. Perhaps, I don't know, the idea is that the Trump is being targeted with this chemtrail activity. Hard to say. But that's a new one on me, Gord, to say that there has been a complete secession. That's not what I'm hearing, but I could be wrong. Thanks for that, Gord. Stuart M. Wilson, what conspiracy theory have you yet to investigate but are interested in? Wow, you ask tough questions. That's impossible for me to answer because it's like asking a child, what would you like for dinner? Or taking a child to a buffet and say, what would you like? There's just too many options. So I can't answer it because I don't know what's out there that I haven't covered. I know that there's a lot, but to ask me to identify it, very difficult. So what I would ask for you to do, Stuart, is email me, all of you, email me or tweet me at Richard Syrett. Email me through the website, strangeplanet.ca. Email me your suggestions. What do you think I've missed? And I'd be happy to cover those. Thank you. Stuart also wants to know what gets me out of bed, what motivates me to do what I do. Is it the search for truth, or is it more? I'm certainly interested in the pursuit of truth. As Plato said, an unexamined life is not worth living. So knowledge is certainly a pursuit, but it may come as a surprise or a shock for all of you to know that I do not spend every waking moment thinking about conspiracies or the globalists or the Bilderbergs or paranormal activity. I really try to, as a family man, I try to compartmentalize my life. And what gets me out of bed in the morning is getting my wife off to work, getting my boys fed breakfast, and I homeschool, my wife and I. So getting them downstairs to the classroom, which is where I am right now, and filling their brains with useful information. And also, cultivating their development, their growth, their academic growth, their physical growth, and of course their spiritual development, as well as my own. Hope that answers your question, Stuart. Thank you. Arno, A-A-R-N-O. Hi, Arno. Have you ever heard of the Lincoln Park Massacre in Calgary in 1958? What I know about Lincoln Park, I don't know. I haven't heard it referred to as a massacre. If you're referring to what I'm talking about, there was, or still is, an RCAF base, a Royal Canadian Air Force base in Lincoln Park in Calgary. And it was rumored that during the Cold War, 1950s, when a lot of horrible things supposedly were going on, that foreign-born children were abducted and brought into Canada by the military, brought to that base where they were experimented on, psychological experiments and so forth, which, if true, is absolutely heinous and evil. The problem is there's not a lot of information out there about it. There is one blogger I've seen. I think his name is Dave Barkley or something. So it's worth looking into. I haven't seen any proof one way or the other that it happened or didn't happen. But if you know someone you'd like to recommend that I can get on the show and we can delve into the Lincoln Park, again, I wouldn't use the word massacre, but the Lincoln Park medical experiments that supposedly, allegedly took place at the Air Force Base in 1958 in Calgary. Thank you for that, Arno. Tyrannid Tipo asks, will you ever have Milo Yiannopoulos on your show one day? Milo is a very controversial character indeed. Brilliant writer, brilliant mind, senior editor with Breitbart News, British journalist of Greek descent. Has become a real lightning rod as he goes on or attempts to speak at college campuses to young conservative groups. He has been banned at certain campuses. He has been met with violent protests, most recently at Berkeley. The short answer is yes. I would love to have Milo on. I have reached out to him in the past, have not heard back, but we'll keep trying. And I believe in free speech, and I think that if you strip away a lot of the shock factor from Milo, what he has to say actually makes a great deal of sense. Of course, I'm speaking as a conservative, and I very much appreciate Milo's intellect and his position on a number of matters. So if he would be willing to spend some time with me on the program, I would be delighted to have him on. I'm sure that would cause quite a stir on the airwaves here in Toronto especially. Thank you, Tyrannid Tipo, for that. Next up, we have Volunteerist 1960. What's your take on Bart Sibrel and the Apollo moon missions? Bart, wonderful documentary filmmaker. The one I saw was a funny thing happened to me on the way to the moon, or a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. And of course, Bart is one who believes that the lunar landings were a hoax. I don't happen to share that point of view, but it was a very entertaining, well put together documentary, and Bart was a terrific interview. I had him on with me many years ago. Thank you for that, Volunteerist. Next up is... oh, that's it, actually. We are done. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that. That was fun for me. I hope I answered your questions satisfactorily, and we'll do it again sometime. In the meantime, listen every Sunday night at 11 p.m. Eastern to The Conspiracy Show, Zoomer Radio here in Toronto, or you can listen in on my app or one of the podcasts, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn.com, iTunes, TalkZone.com, and of course, there's also the live YouTube stream. Please take a moment and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.